Soundwave, you may be beaten and broken, but I will not allow you to die yet. I will rebuild you bigger and stronger than before, and I shall call you New Soundwave.
Hey guys, and we're here today to have a little look at the Fall of Cybertron Soundblaster, a new mold and a redux and a big sized version of this little guy, the deluxe Generations, I think he was, War of Cybertron Soundwave. You can buy this version, Fall of Cybertron, here at Big Bad Toy Store of course. And we'll jump straight into him, and you'll get to hear my thoughts on the actual mold. Is it worth buying over, say, this guy if you already have it? And also, he does have a little gimmick, which I'm sure you all know about. And for those in the future that have forgotten or don't know, you'll get to have a look at it right here. Unless you've seen it elsewhere, then this is kind of just treading over old ground. But there you go. So, let's get straight on to the video. Boo, ba, boo, boo, beep. So here is Fall of Cybertron Soundblaster. He's a big old Cybertronian truck, and I really think that the mold captures this kind of big meaty vehicle quite successfully. Got some good pointy teeth on the front, a bizarre machine gun on the top, and randomly for no particular reason, a tiny chair, which I don't think anyone could really use on Cybertron, but there you go. Unfortunately, I don't think the back of this mode is desperately amazing. It doesn't feel quite as seamless and streamlined as perhaps it could have been, but I don't find it too egregious. And personally, I'm not a fan of the wheels. I don't really like them being translucent. I preferred the thickness and kind of oomph of the War for Cybertron one personally. And I do like the choice of the gold paint all over him, so I do find the yellow kind of a bit random and a little bit out of place. It's a bit glaring, and not in a good way, I find. I would have really preferred this to have just been gold itself. So here's Soundblaster next to Soundwave, just for a comparison. And I'll just knock those teeth down to make it a little bit more accurate. You can just see the size and scale in comparison to these two, one being a Deluxe, one being a Voyager, but there's just so much more height and girth to Soundblaster than the little Soundwave. I would have preferred the weapons to be installed like this on Soundblaster rather than as it is. Maybe this little chair was designed so you could use a Creon for, I guess. I mean, it kind of works, but it just looks a bit awkward. Who would use that chair on Cybertron? There's no one small enough, as far as I'm aware, as he falls off. But yeah, I mean, this bit does wobble around a bit more than I'd like it to, so you need to kind of wobble it in place. But generally, I think Soundblaster is a bit more successful in this mode than Soundwave. Though there are some issues, like he's a bit loose in places. That top part, I mean, this guy's pretty solid. He's all over, not coming apart because of all the pegs. But because of the gimmick they wanted to go for here, he's just a little bit... I just would like to have seen a few more pegs to get everything into position nicely. And there is a reason, of course, why he's a bit less stable, or peggy, I suppose, and that's because he can use his gimmick in this mode as well. He can fire his data discs, as I'll pull out Buzzsaw when I can find him. Here he is. He can fire him out in this mode. I'm not going to show you him do it because it's a bit redundant. I'm going to show you the gimmick later on. But to do it, what you do is you just kind of push the chair forward. And that's on this slider, which would push it forward. It does leave a big gap in the toy, but it's kind of nice that you can use the gimmick in both modes, but just would have liked him a bit more solid. Less floaty. He's just missing it. But I suppose it's time to see if he's missing it in robot mode. And here's Soundblaster in his robot mode, with a lot better proportions than his little deluxe counterpart. And if you ask me, it's a lot closer to the game model than War for Cybertron Soundwave turned out as well. He's got a lot of good sculpted detail all over his body, but I think he really could have done with a little bit more paint here and there on his thighs, just to break up the solid grey of it. Bar that point, I really don't find the grey plastic, which is usually hated on by a lot of people for good reason, I find it to work quite well here. It's a good contrast to the glossy kind of black-grey paint that they've used all over this toy, or plastic I should say. And I also find that the red and gold really make it pop where it should and draw your attention to it. And for 2013, I think this guy actually has a pretty successful head sculpt as well. It's not mushy and it's fairly sharp. Though that just could be because of Soundwave's simplistic face design, so hard to tell and hard to judge. Now it's articulation time, guys, so let's get straight to it with his legs. He has the universal joint here in his hip so he can go forwards and back and hella out. He can do some hella splits and do all that nice jazz. He has a thigh cut, it's more of a knee cut, but it gives the same effect, and a good 90-degree bend in his knee. And listen to it. Listen to the clicks. He also has a little foot joint here, but it's mainly due to the transformation. No waist joint, again. Would have been nice, but I can't blame him for missing. The shoulders here are quite interesting because of the way they transform. They have this little hinge system here as I adjust the camera. And something it can do is you can lower the shoulders here for some interesting poses, as I'll show you in a bit. He also, as you would imagine, has a shoulder joint, so he can move it up to there. And because he has this other joint, he can lift his arm even higher up to actually this bizarre angle, which doesn't look quite right, and it just doesn't look right there. But it's nice it has it, I suppose. We do have a bicep cut, so he can swivel around his arm. We have some extreme clicky joints again in his elbow. Sorry, listen to the clicks. Oh, it's basically a double jointed arm, but it does the job. The hands also move in and out because of the transformation, and twizzle or turn because they are on a little joint there. So it is quite effective. He also obviously has a bit of head movement, but the best way to do it is to pull this bit off, because the neck joint I found was a little bit stiff on mine at first. So you just need to kind of break it in a bit, and you can turn his head all the way this way so he can look at one shoulder, and yep, just zoom in there, and you can turn it all the way around to the other side and have a look at his other shoulder. As I mentioned, it is a little bit stiff at first. It takes a bit of time to just get broken in, and you know, you're fine after that. But it is a lot easier without his giant gun thing on his his gun thing next to his head there, just so you can get a better grip. Now, I mentioned you can get some poses like this. Some nice ones anyway. One I like to do is just the kind of, you know, hands around his booty, you know, like he's thinking and maybe patrolling around. I don't know, I just think it works quite nicely. It's a nice little thing that they, you know, maybe not intentional, but it's okay. So I think we should look at his gimmick, and obviously this is a big part of it. So hey, guess what? Let's press this button and boom! A nice spring and a little switch there. And actually some really nice detail sculpted in here, which wasn't necessary, apart from the screw, which is, again, right in your face. And even the lid here had some nice detail in it. And yeah, nice spring, so you get sprung. Here is the data disc, buzzsaw, or gold saw, whatever you want to call him. He's buzzsaw. Nice pattern on there. On the bottom, it's obvious what it is, and it's got the button. And what you do here is, if I move his arms out of the way, we get to his back, and I showed you this kind of in the vehicle. You pull this back, and he has a gaping hole in his stomach. So even a crayon can be kind of jammed in there and closed up and devoured. Maybe he's a Power Master, but not really. So get rid of him. And that pretty much shows you what the gimmick does. You know, in all honesty, that's all it is. It's this big plunger system. So you get your data disc, preferably not a crayon. You just jam it in there. It is a little bit tricky because these are partsy, so you just kind of shove it in there, and then there you go. And he's all in and all secure. And yeah, you'd flip that down, and then again, it's pretty much you just launch it and hope that it lands on the right side up, and then it transforms for you. So it didn't do it that time, but that's the button. And yeah, we'll just put Soundblaster and get him all nice and set up, because it is meant to. I mean, he can fit two or three in there, but the more you have in, the further it goes out. And I prefer them not to be in, just to get a nicer looking Sound Blaster. So what he should do, this data disc called Buzzsaw, is you should drop it or something, and boom! Oh my god, I did it first time, thank god. And it transforms just like the Bakugan, or so I hear the kids calling them these days. And here is Buzzsaw. I keep wanting to call him Goldsaw. And he's quite well detailed. I've played with the other molds, and this is probably the most successful of the data discs. Ravage is awful. This one's got some really nice detail on it, and as you saw, works successfully, even with his limited, no opposability at all, in fairness. And he closes up really nice and easy. Unlike the other ones where you have to fiddle around with bits and whatnot, you just jam this together and it's done in seconds. So there's no need to go, flip these arms down and then boom, he's done again. It's all nice and simple. Everything works for him. No issues here. Yeah. Good, not a bad gimmick, but not amazing. It's not a big selling point for me, anyway. Overall, I do enjoy this toy. The gimmick really doesn't wow me. I think it's nice and effective, and for those who really want that kind of Soundwave launching his buddies out of his chest, then this is going to satisfy you, I think. For me, what I enjoy about this toy is I think the mold is a nice improvement. It's not a giant step forward compared to the War of Cybertron Soundwave, but I think it's enough to justify it. As you saw from the video, I justified this by being, in quotations, new Soundwave. But if you are at all interested in the mold, there is, of course, Blaster, who you can justify because he hasn't had a War of Cybertron toy, this will be his Fall of Cybertron toy, but you get what I'm saying. I think the mold is certainly worth checking out. The data discs seem to be a very mixed basket, so if you are going to go down that route, just beware of that. But thank you guys for watching this little video. If you are interested again where you can pick this up, you can go over to Big Bad Toy Store and grab them there. Tell them Andy sent you, and then send me a pie full of money, because that's how my pies like to be filled. Don't need no apples in them pies. Next time, people, we will talk about some sexy crayons again, because, man, I've got some combining to talk about. Until then, people, I hope you combine with the discs in your chest for the future. I have no idea what that means, though. None at all.